signed the agreement on behalf of the association. It was signed by the President-elect, Leighton Johnson. He joins us now.
Good evening, President-elect Johnson.
Good evening, President-elect.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening to your listeners.
Well, where was your president?
The president was unavoidably absent. She did start the process, but then she left the Ministry of Finance.
But she was in the room, wasn't she there at the beginning?
At the beginning, yes, she was.
And wasn't she aware that an agreement had been accepted and that she was there to sign?
Yes, she was.
So what would have caused her to leave without signing?
I cannot speak to the intent or the reason that the president left, but what I do know is that the delegates of the association gave us a mandate, and we had to stand on that mandate by signing the agreement.
Us being who?
The presidents.
The who?
Did you say presidents plural?
Yes, because remember, the Jamaica Teachers Association the structure is that it has president, it has the president-elect and the immediate past president. Now, if the president is unavailable for any duty, or articles stipulate that the president-elect has to deputize on the president's behalf. That article was activated this afternoon, and that's what took place.
But
save and except though, Mr. Johnson, your president was there. She had turned up at the Ministry of Finance, and you all knew what you were turning up there to do. And that was to sign on behalf of the delegates to give effect to the decision that the delegates made, 800 of them last evening, to accept. Yes. Isn't this unprecedented, sir?
Indeed, it is unprecedented, but it is what it is. Again, the president indicated her unavailability to sign and invoked the article which required the president-elect to deputize on behalf of the president.
Hold on.
And that's what took place this afternoon.
Hold on, Mr. Johnson, President-elect Johnson. There are a couple of things here that need some interrogation. You initially told us she was unavoidably absent, and then you said she invoked
for the signing. So whatever it is, whatever is her reason, she indicated that she would not be available for signing and left the Ministry of Finance.
Did she tell you the reason why she wouldn't be able to sign?
No, she didn't.
So you deduced that she was unavoidably absent because?
On the basis that she indicated that she would not be able to sign. She had to leave.
Is the president in agreement with the decision of our delegates?
I cannot speak to the president's position at this time. I cannot. But what I can indicate is that the delegates gave a mandate through the democratic process. The special conference was convened, it was ratified, and the delegates spoke. Having received the directives from the delegates, then we have a duty to carry out the instructions of our delegates.
And remind us of the numbers who voted last evening.
Last evening we had the largest in the history of the Jamaica Teachers Association of delegates turning up to any conference. We had in excess of 800 delegates on the platform, and 80% of those persons voted to accept the government's latest offer.
Mr. President, did you just say the largest number of delegates in the history of the JTA
turning up for a conference
yesterday?
And
this is in the 59-year history of the JTA?
That's correct.
And at that moment, your president chose to take away herself from the signing. Isn't this embarrassing, Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Hughes, I will not indicate whatever perception there is. The fact is the Jamaica Teachers Association, representing over 25,000 teachers in Jamaica, had a duty this afternoon. The government indicated that it is willing to move forward with what the delegates indicated, and that's exactly what happened. The agreement.
Well, we're trying to find her. We're trying to find her because, she has not made herself available. So I'll put it to you: this tantamounts to her abandoning her members, her teachers, at this crucial moment, Mr. Johnson.
All right, so that's a perspective, Mr. Hughes, that one can deduce, but in this moment, I am unable to speak to the president's intent or her actions. It was my duty as the president-elect.
Were you not surprised by her action?
I was astonished. I was astonished, but on the basis that the teachers of Jamaica elected me as well to be the incumbent, to be the person who will be taking up the mantle in a couple of months. The association's articles are clear. Once the president is unavailable, then the president-elect has to take up duties and exercise.
You were astonished, and I dare say why. Why were you astonished?
Simply because the delegates gave us a mandate, and, the president is the one who, under normal circumstances, would have signed the deal. It is the president who would have applied the ink to the paper. That is what would have obtained over the history of the association. For the president-elect to be called on at a sudden juncture to deputize on behalf of the president, it was a little astonishing. Nonetheless, I was humbled at the opportunity, and I believe that having signed, we acted on behalf of the delegates on whose instructions we stand.
Let me ask you this, Mr. President-elect. What were you told by the president before she left the room?
No. The president has not spoken to me personally. The president has not spoken to me personally regarding before she left the room. The president made her statements and exited the room.
Made her statements? What were those statements?
No. The bottom line is, the fact is, at this point, gentlemen, I am not at liberty to divulge those statements that were made.
She made statements. She made statements to who?
The statements that were made indicated that she was now invoking the articles and instructed that the president-elect would now deputize on her behalf because she will not be available for signing.
So she made it clear that she was not prepared to sign the agreement that her delegates had voted for.
She indicated that she was not available for signing.
No, but she was there. So how can we accept that she's not available? She was there. So tell us, it can't be that she's not available. She was there. Jamaicans are listening, Mr. President. May I advise you? And basically what is being put on the table to us is not adding up. And I'm sure we're thinking Jamaicans must be in a tizzy out trying to figure out what really happened. I'm saying you can't invoke an article that says I'm not available and I'm in the room.
You're asking a question. You're asking questions, and the responses are, at this juncture, I do not have the rationale or reasons for the president leaving the room. I cannot speak on behalf of the president to indicate her intentions or why it is she did not stay to sign.
As you say, you were astonished.
There you go.
Yes.
So on the basis that I was placed in this position, the articles of association that govern the
Mr. Johnson, you did say that before, but let me put it to you. How can Lasagna Harrison continue tomorrow morning to lead the Jamaica Teachers Association as its president, having conducted herself the way she did this evening?
Again, Mr. Hughes, I cannot speak on behalf of Mrs. Harrison. I think you're asking questions that Mrs. Harrison will need to answer for herself. Of course, I know the Secretariat of the Jamaica Teachers Association will have dialogues and discussions with her to identify her posture and going forward. But at this juncture, I am unable to speak on her behalf.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you to speak on your own behalf, Mr. President-elect. You are in the room. You're a member of the JTA. You are a member of the executive as the president-elect. How did you feel about the actions of your president today? I know you were astonished, but now that you've gotten some time to think about it, as a member of the JTA, do you feel as if your president abandoned the mission?
I'm not sure if abandoned is the word, but of course, you know, there are questions. There are questions as to the reason for her not availing herself for the completion of the signing. There are those questions. And until we get that response, I am not in a position to judge Mrs. Harrison's actions at this time.
This has never happened in the history of the JTA.
It has never happened before. No.
Never.
So heading to the... Sorry, go ahead, Cliff.
Go ahead.
No, man, go ahead.
And as such, the association this evening is embarrassed, and frankly, it is the object of ridicule that this woman has abandoned the 25,000 members of her association precisely at the moment when they have struggled, they have protested, yes, they have done several sit-ins, and were able to extract some more from the government. And at that moment, she decides to quit on you all. Can she credibly continue as JTA president, Mr. Johnson?
All right, so that's a decision for Mrs. Harrison.
No,
as well as the
no, it's not only for
Isn't there anything in your charter that speaks to this?
That's not a decision for Mrs. Harrison. The membership of the Jamaica Teachers Association, as well as the Secretariat, to decide.
So your charter speaks to situations of this nature?
In my readings, I have not come across to any situation of this nature. I have not come across anything of this nature. So therefore, I am certain that conversations with Mrs. Harrison, as well as discussions with the Secretary General and the other officers and administrative staff in the association, as well as the General Council, they will indicate the direction of the association.
My final one on this, President-elect, is heading to this meeting to do the signing. Were you advised beforehand that you'd be the one that would have to sign, or was the bomb dropped on you in the middle of the meeting?
I think based on my utterances and responses before, you know the answer to that. I was, as the president-elect, accompanying the president to witness the signing of the agreement between the Teachers of Jamaica and the government of Jamaica.
Mr. President-elect, last Wednesday, March 8th, 577 of the JTA's delegates voted.
Yes.
346 against the offer, 227 in favor of the offer.
Yes.
A total of 577. That was on the 8th of March. 4 days later, yesterday, Sunday, 784 voted. An increase of almost 40%.
Yes.
Yes?
Correct.
147 voted against, 629 voted to accept.
Correct.
80%. As against 60% who voted no 4 days ago.
Yes.
What was responsible for the massive turnaround in the decision of your delegates to vote to accept? That massive turnaround in 4 days. What caused that?
Coming out of the special conference last Wednesday, that's March 8th, the delegates gave the team a mandate that we should return to the negotiating table with the Ministry of Finance to get a better offer. Of course, by now, you know that the Ministry of Labour intervened and ensured that we went back to the table. On Friday afternoon, we were invited back to a meeting with the Honourable Minister Nigel Clark. And coming out of that meeting, an improved offer was made. That offer was taken to the teachers of Jamaica by way of consultation for the entire day on Saturday. So consultations started at 10 a.m. There's one consultation at 10. There's another at 1, and there was another at 6 p.m. All virtual consultations. Teachers were given the opportunity to dissect the offer, to look at the current package. Teachers were presented with the information, and they were given the opportunity to ask their questions, to ask individual questions on an individual basis based on their own context. The teachers were then instructed to make contact with their delegates through their district associations. Information ascertained from the Secretariat is that the district associations met or polled their members. And coming out of those polls on Sunday, March 12th, at the special conference, the teachers voted in the 80% of those who were online to accept the offer.
What was the sweetener, President-elect? What the graduate teachers? I gather that was a sticking point. What changed for them?
All right. So indeed, yes, there was some movement where the graduate trained teachers were concerned. At this time, gentlemen, I'm sure you can understand that the teachers' business has been in the public domain for the duration of this negotiating period, and I find it a little distasteful. I will not divulge any further details as to what the sweetener was, but just to indicate that there was movement for the trained grads for the second and third year.
How much more will that cost your employers?
I think that now is a question, Mr. Hughes, for Dr. Clark. Let me ask you this one, President-elect. As there have been accusations, and a former political representative was in the news recently as saying teachers traditionally vote for the PNP and basically trying to align the JTA, I would suppose, with a certain political party. So there have been accusations that the posture of the JTA may be politically motivated. Given the actions of the president, what kind of work will your administration have to do to rid the JTA of this label that is being placed on it? I'm not suggesting that the JTA is, but considering all things, given the actions of the JTA president today, there are well-thinking people who might be looking on and wondering if there is any truth to the accusations that are being leveled about political interference in these matters. How do you respond?
All right. So, of course, you know, over the history of the Jamaica Teachers Association, we have often contended with this particular position. where persons attempt to label the organization as being aligned to one party or the other. It must be stated clearly, and I'm happy that you articulated that was not the intent of the question, but I believe it's necessary for me to indicate that the Jamaica Teachers Association is a non-partisan organization. And of course, in terms of political interference, of course, there have been attempts of political interference, but our actions are transparent and are not aligned to any of the two major political parties in our country. There's work to be done to repair the image of the Jamaica Teachers Association, and it is something that we will all have to coalesce around. Our motto says unite and serve, and this is exactly what we will be doing going forward. We have to unite, we have to come together, and we must indicate as much as possible that the Jamaica Teachers Association has been a formidable force in our nation's history, and I dare say in the development of education, and we will continue to make those contributions. What? I'll also want to indicate to gentlemen that the agreement signed with the government of Jamaica is an agreement that we would not consider the best agreement. There are gaps, there are issues, there are spaces where we would have wanted additional. But we are saying at this point, the teachers, the delegates have indicated their willingness to accept and to move forward to the next negotiating period, and this is what we will be working at going forward.
Let me ask you this, if you have the answer to this. I know you can't speak on behalf of the JTA boss. What was the mood of the president like, if that was shared with you, if you're in her company, when the delegates voted to accept the offer? Did you get a chance to assess or gauge the mood of the president?
No, you see, one of the perhaps challenges or beauties of the online space is that you do not get to interface personally. And because this was a virtual conference, I am not able to indicate the mood of the president.
And she did not address the conference virtually to say no response from her whatsoever to the vote?
No. Of course, she responded to the vote. She indicated to the conference, she thanked the delegates for their participation, for their robust participation, and indicated the process, indicating that once the delegates have spoken through their majority votes, then the association would continue on the business of the teachers, and the conference ended. So it ended in that atmosphere where the president thanked everyone and the meeting was terminated.
How long did that meeting last?
The meeting lasted, well, on the back end, the staff of the Jamaica Teachers Association, they were online verifying the delegates from 2 p.m. last evening, and that meeting went up until some minutes after 8. After
8 last evening?
Yes.
So, just for the record, Mr. Johnson, you are the president-elect. President Lasagna Harrison will, by your practice and regulations, she is expected to serve up until when?
Until August, the 31st of August.
This year?
This year.
So she has at least another 5 months.
Correct.
Yes, but there are questions tonight over whether or not she will go up until then. I'm getting, for example, in my WhatsApp. Yes, may I just read this for you? Yes, JTA President storms out of meeting, refuses to sign new wage agreement, saying it is an insult to teachers. all of the executive is against her. Fire at the end of the month when the General Council meets. Her resignation is being asked for by former presidents. Any truth to that?
No, I cannot speak to any of those, Sir Hughes.
Do you think she should resign, sir?
I cannot speak to the president's intent.
No, we're not asking you about the intent. I'm asking you, as a member of the executive, do you think she should resign, given her actions today?
My position at this time, gentlemen, may not necessarily, perhaps it is not necessary at this time. My personal position, it is an institution, the JTA, that one individual's position may not ride, or it may be overruled. So in the interest of the Jamaica Teachers Association, I will not share a position at this time.
But it's instructive that you have not said no. She should continue. I find that very instructive, Mr. Johnson. Tell the people of Jamaica listening, who is Mr. Johnson? Tell me a little bit about yourself, Leighton Johnson. Who are you?
So I am Leighton Johnson, principal of the Mushet High School located in Wakefield, Trelawney. I have been an educator for approximately 23 years. I have served as principal for 2 institutions, the Racecourse Primary School located in Clarendon, and now at the Mushet High School in another cane belt, sugar belt, the Queen of Spain Valley in Trelawney. I am married with a daughter, and it is my intention to continue providing the best service to the nation's teachers and to education.
And you've been a teacher, you say, for 23 years?
Approximately 23 years, yes.
What's your area of discipline in terms of teaching?
So in terms of pedagogical competencies, I majored in science and social studies. I have a bachelor's in educational administration and a master's in the same field from the University of the West Indies.
I dare say that come later this week, you could be the new president, the acting president of the JTA. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
I hope you're...
Thank you very much, Mr.